Discover 3 spine-chilling, sinister Christmas horror stories that will haunt your holidays forever. Clara's heart raced as December rolled in, casting its shadow over the sleepy suburb of Chicago where she lived. The week after Thanksgiving, she felt that thick sense of holiday dread creeping in. With fading finances, she scrimped and saved, determined to fill her small home with joy for her kids, Riley and Charlie. Then came the day she rummaged through the attic and pulled out boxes of decorations. As she dug deeper, she uncovered an ornate Santa figurine, its painted eyes almost watching her. The moment it settled on their mantel, an uneasy chill washed over her. At first, she dismissed it as a trick of the mind, but each time she walked past it, she felt a prickling at the back of her neck, like icy fingers tracing her spine. It was just an old decoration, she told herself. But still, a tremor of fear settled in. Later that night, Clara settled in front of the TV, hoping for a little distraction. The local news flickered to life. A reporter's voice droned on about a bizarre Santa-like figure spotted lurking outside homes in their very neighborhood. Panic shot through her. Families claimed they'd seen it watching silently, then disappearing into the shadows. They laughed and called it urban folklore, but Clara's heart raced at the thought of it prowling so close. Her anxiety skyrocketed when her friendly neighbor, Mr. Thompson, suddenly turned odd. He began dropping by unannounced, waving a basket of homemade cookies, the warm smells clashing sharply with her unease. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just holiday cheer, something dark twisted behind his grin. Just as she convinced herself that the lurking figure was a myth, the unimaginable happened. On Christmas Eve, as lights twinkled and the air buzzed with excitement, Riley and Charlie inexplicably vanished. Clara's breath caught when she realized they weren't in the living room, nor were they in the yard where she'd last seen them. Riley? Charlie? Her voice trembled as she shouted into the cold night. Shadows danced in the flickering streetlights as she dashed down the street, every festive sparkle now a cruel beacon of her dread. Neighbors peered through their windows, eyes filled with confusion and concern, but Clara barely noticed the curious glances. With each corner she turned, the darkness thickened. Whispers floated back to her, tales of long-buried secrets and despair lurking beneath suburban smiles. Her heart skipped. She felt the fabric of safety unraveling. The familiar neighborhood turned foreign and hostile. As she sprinted home, breathless and frantic, the figure of the Santa statue loomed larger in her mind, thrumming with a power that felt alive. It felt like a trap, a draw to the darkness that seemed to seep slowly into her very bones. Legends about cursed artifacts buried in hidden truths swirled in her mind. The weight of impending disaster pressed on her chest. The clock was ticking. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The palpable dread clawed at her, a noose tightening around her mind. Clara's instincts screamed at her as she retraced her steps, glancing back at every creak of a door, every shadow stretching beneath streetlights. Had she ignored the signs? The creeping unease? Was the festive cheer really just a disguise for the darkness festering in her community? As she rounded the last corner, she knew something terrible was waiting. Perhaps it was the very history of the Santa statue, or maybe it was the neighbor's sudden hospitality. Either way, Clara had to confront the looming horror, a malignant force that threatened not only her children but the very spirit of Christmas itself, and she had to do it fast. Could she unravel the mysteries before her fears consumed everything dear to her? The flickering lights shimmered mockingly, a dire reminder that time was running out. Clara stumbled into her darkened living room, the festive lights casting wavering shadows that painted the walls with eerie shapes. The Santa figurine stood eerily still on the mantel, its painted eyes appearing to glint in the light. It felt alive, and each breath Clara took was heavy with the weight of terror. Where are you? She whispered, her voice cracking. Panic coursed through her veins, and she felt as if the walls themselves were leaning in, waiting for her to break. She glanced at the front door, still ajar. Had her children gone outside? A gnawing pit of dread settled in her stomach. What if they were out there, lost in the cold darkness? Or worse, what if something else had taken them? Clara grabbed her coat, her hands trembling as she fumbled with the buttons. With the weight of the world on her shoulders, she stepped into the chill of the night, her breath visible in the cold air. She squinted into the shadows, searching. Riley? Charlie? She shouted again, her voice echoing through the silence that smothered the neighborhood. There was no answer, only the faint rustle of leaves and the distant hum of a Christmas carol, twisting in the wind. As she crept down the street, the unease washed over her again. Houses were trimmed with bright lights, yet felt hauntingly empty. Clara caught glimpses of curtains moving slightly, but no one offered any help. No screams for help. No tears. Just silence. Suddenly, she heard a giggle. Clara's heart surged. Riley. Charlie. The sound seemed to come from the backyard of Mr. Thompson's house. Faint, mischievous laughter echoed again, like shards of glass cutting through the darkness. She hesitated, dread rising like bile as she remembered her neighbor's odd behavior, the strange glints in his eyes, the way he lingered just a moment too long when he smiled. With a deep breath, she approached the gate, the wood creaking ominously as she pushed it open. The yard was dimly lit, shadows stretching long and conspiratorial. Clara's senses were heightened, every shadow felt alive, watching her. Mommy! Riley's voice suddenly rang out, shrill and joyful. Clara's heart soared, but something felt wrong. Riley? Where are you? She heard the sound again, now fading into raucous laughter. It echoed from the dark corner of the yard, where the taller hedges loomed like sentinels. As she stepped closer, a vision swam before her, shadows dancing, framed by the fiery glow of her neighbor's decorations. The laughter twisted into something darker. Clara's intuition urged her to turn back, to save herself, but the instinct to reach her children was stronger. Then, the laughter stopped. A cold wind whispered through the branches, drawing her closer. Riley? Charlie? She felt desperate, terrified. Mommy, we're playing. A voice emerged from the shadows. Clara's heart raced. It was too cheerful, too carefree to belong in this haunting moment. She edged closer to the thickest part of the hedges. Invisible hands seemed to grab at her, pulling her into their grasp. Something was wrong here. Panic struck her as she called again, I'm coming. Just hold on. As she reached for the last bush, a figure stepped out. Tall, lean, dressed in a dark red coat, resembling Santa in a mocking way. The edges of the figure blended into the night, watching her intently. Are you ready for a different kind of Christmas? It whispered, its voice dripping with malice. Clara froze. The toy's eyes, those haunting painted eyes, flooded her mind. Was this the creature she'd seen in the news? Was this the thing that had taken her children? Just then, behind the figure, she caught sight of her children, still giggling, oblivious to the horror that loomed before them. Their smiles turned vacant as Clara felt despair clawing at her, squeezing her throat. Run! She screamed, realizing the truth as shadows twisted around her. But was it too late? The figure reached out, fingers curling like claws. Clara's heart pounded violently as she was torn between fear and motherly instinct. But every decision had consequences. The darkness awaited, and Clara felt its icy grip on her soul. What would she sacrifice to save her children? What horrors awaited her next? Clara's scream sliced through the night, shattering the thick veil of silence. But all that met her cry was the cruel laughter that echoed back, resounding in the void. The figure loomed before her, a chilling specter straight from a nightmare. Its smile twisted, wide and disturbing, as though relishing in her dread, and it stepped forward, the shadows clinging to its form like a cloak of despair. "Come play with us, Mommy," it taunted, voice slithering smooth and low. The man, was he truly a man? Held out a hand that resembled twisted branches adorned with matted hair, each finger tipped with a jagged fingernail. "Stay away!" Clara yelled, panic igniting her body, her instincts screaming at her to flee. But her children were right there, wrapped in a surreal bubble of jarring innocence. "Mommy, come on, it's fun." Riley's voice broke through the haze, cheerful and inviting. But the mirth in that voice was hollow, echoing discordantly against the foreboding of the figure in front of her. "Clara," the figure beckoned. "It's your turn to join the festivities." Clara's legs trembled, unwilling to obey her mind. The air turned heavier, the weight of the moment pressing like a leaden shroud. Blood thundered in her ears as she took a hesitant step forward, her heart pounding as though seeking to escape her chest. "Riley! Charlie! Come to me!" But her children remained frozen, laughter dying on their lips, eyes glossy and distant as the shadows pricked at their edges. She could feel the darkness wrapping around her, its icy breath curling around her, whispering promises of joy that twisted into something grotesque. Clara fought for composure, battling against the chill terror consuming her. "You're not my kids," she asserted, her voice steadier, fiercer. "Let them go." "Why would we? They're having so much fun with us," the figure cruelly chuckled, gesturing as if revealing a playroom filled with ominous delight. Clara's gaze flitted back to Riley and Charlie, who stood eerily still, hands hanging limply at their sides. Their laughter lingered, still echoing in her mind, wrapping around her gut like a vice. "Join the game, Clara," the figure urged, drawing nearer, its breath colder than the winter night. "Christmas isn't just for moments of cheer, it's for the eternal fun forever." Every instinct screamed for her to run, but with every step she felt the pull, the need to rescue her children drowning in a sea of dread. What had they become? "No!" she shouted, fighting to break the wicked spell that bound her family. "We're leaving." But as she reached toward her children, a shadowed hand wrapped around her own, dragging her closer. It was too late. Clara felt the darkness close in. Her breath caught in her throat, and her heart raced wildly. She felt trapped, ensnared in a web of malice woven by the figure before her. Then, in a flicker of movement, Clara glanced at the figure, its face distorted, mocking her, as something glimmered behind it. From the depths of darkness, a pair of childlike eyes sparkled, familiar yet chilling, and the sound of giggling returned, sharper, as if echoing from a place of despair. "Mommy, come play," they echoed in chorus, a children's song twisted into something horrifying. Clara's stomach churned, the realization hit like a tidal wave. What if this was just the beginning of a nightmare far more sinister than she could imagine? Just as she was about to scream again, the world around her spiraled into blackness, pulling her deeper into the shadows. Each terrified thought raced through her mind. What had she allowed to creep into her life? What other horrors lay in wait? As her vision faded, darkness engulfing her completely, she heard a final, chilling whisper, "Will you join our Christmas forever?" Was there an escape from this sinister celebration, or had she walked straight into a hellish trap? Clara clung to one thought in her final moments of consciousness, the haunting question reverberating in her mind: what price would she have to pay to reclaim her children? Clara's mind swirled in a tempest of confusion, enveloped by the darkness. Fear wrapped around her like a vice, leaving no room for breath or reason. As the night closed in, she felt an unbearable weight bearing down on her, the kind of darkness that swallows all hope whole. Suddenly, flickers of red and green danced at the edges of her vision. A festive glow? Or a cruel joke? The darkness started to peel back, revealing a dimly lit room, a warped version of her own home decorated for Christmas. Tinsel hung crookedly from the walls, and the air was thick with an unnatural sweetness, like rotting candy canes. "Mommy!" The shrill call of her children echoed in the quaint madness. Clara instinctively turned, heart leaping at the sound, only to find the source twisted and wrong. Riley and Charlie stood before her, their faces gaunt, hollow eyes devoid of joy. They were nothing but marionettes in a puppeteer's play, tangled in shadows. "Join us. We're playing." Their voices chimed in unison, the sweetness tainted with something dark and sinister. She forced herself to move, reaching out like a moth drawn to a flame, but before she could touch them, the shadowed figure manifested once again from the gloom, its grin sharp and malevolent. "They're having the best time," it hissed, its twisted fingers curling around the air as if tethering them to a nightmare. "Don't you want to join them in the Christmas games?" "No!" Clara screamed, her voice raw and desperate as she stumbled backward, kicking up ornaments that shattered like glass into 1,000 sparkling shards. She needed to wake up. This couldn't be real. They needed to break free. "Mommy, please." The plea was all too familiar, but the way they said it sent tremors of dread into her bones. It was as if the voices were pulling her, luring her into the depths, wrapping around her heart with icy fingers. "Get away from them!" she shouted, her legs heavy with defeat, but she forced herself to move toward her children. The soft glow of evil lurked in every corner of the room. With a sudden explosion of light, the walls began to pulse as if breathing. Christmas carols, once joyful, now morphed into a cacophony of taunting laughter and cries that warped and twisted with every note. "Join the festivities, Clara. Don't you want to be with them forever?" She could feel the seductive pull growing stronger, the whispers promising eternal joy. One step, just one more step, and she would be lost. But in the center of that chaotic room, something caught her eye: an old, dust-covered wooden box near the tree. It pulsed with an eerie glow, beckoning her with an unspoken promise. Clara's heart raced. What was inside? It seemed to glow with the very essence of life, of all that she had lost. "Don't, Mommy!" Riley and Charlie yelled, their fingers stretching toward the box, their expressions twisted in both fear and longing. "It's a trap. A trick to keep you here forever." The words sliced through her like a knife, and the figure let out a guttural roar, shadows swirling angrily around it. "Silence! You will not ruin my game." She hesitated, torn between the urge to rescue her children or unleash the potential nightmare lurking inside that box. The shadows inched closer, and the laughter grew sharper, every moment drawing her deeper into dread. "Clara, open it," her children urged, their voices catching in her throat. But what was truly inside? What sacrifice would it demand? "Mommy, please," they chorused again, as the room trembled with tension, the shadows crawling closer, hungry for her decision. Could she trust them anymore? Or were they already claimed by the darkness? This was her choice, to risk everything or remain trapped in a twisted Christmas that promised no escape. Clara drew a breath, trembling violently. She could almost hear the screams of her heart, beating for clarity, for freedom. Now was the moment. Was she willing to pay the price to unravel the mystery of the box, or had the stakes risen too high? As the memories of laughter twisted and warped around her, she reached toward the glowing box. Uncertainty slicing through her veins. Would she uncover a way to save herself and her children? Or was opening it the very act that sealed their fates in darkness? The moment Clara touched the box, an electric shock coursed through her, igniting her senses. The shadows recoiled, drawing back as if stung by her defiance. Inside, she felt a throbbing pulse and heartbeat that was not her own. "Stop! Don't open it!" Riley's voice rang out, desperation lacing his words, but the glow enveloped Clara in a warm embrace, intoxicating and filled with promises of salvation. Yet something still churned in her gut. It was unsettling, a confusing mix of fear and curiosity. She hesitated, hands suspended in the air, fingers brushing the surface of the aged wood. "You can have them back, Mommy. You just have to want them," the dark figure growled, moving closer, its smile stretching impossibly wide. "They want you to embrace the joy. Don't you want to hear their laughter again? But at what cost?" Clara gasped, her heart racing. The air thickened, heavy with dread. She could feel a dark energy wrapping around her, squeezing tighter with each passing second. Everything has a price. The figure hissed, shadows churning violently around it, reshaping into cruel, twisted imitations of Christmas joy, a tree adorned with rotting ornaments, a feast that oozed bloodied gravy, and a fire that crackled with whispers of despair. No! Clara screamed, the warmth rushing from her fingertips as she pulled away from the box. The moment she withdrew, the room trembled violently. The laughter morphed into screams, piercing, shrill sounds swallowed by the darkness that spiraled in. The lights flickered, blinking ominously, casting shadows that seemed to crawl toward her, hungry for her essence. "Mommy, don't leave us!" Riley and Charlie shouted, desperate, pleading. Their forms flickered, wavering between reality and shadow, as if reality itself was losing its grip. Terror gripped Clara's heart. "I'm right here. I won't leave you." She wanted to break through the chaos and pull them back, but the darkness was relentless, a wave crashing over her, burying her in its sorrow. "Don't you see? It's already too late." The figure laughed, and the sound echoed, a cacophony that cut to her very soul. "They belong to me now. They're mine to keep." And then she noticed that the children were fading, their outlines growing more indistinct. "Help us, Mommy!" They cried, but the shadows snaked tightly around them, erasing them inch by inch, laughter turning to sobs that clawed at her heart. "No!" Clara screamed, a primal cry filled with sorrow and rage. In a rush of desperation, she slammed her hand back against the box. The warmth surged through her again, blurring her vision. Just then, a flood of memories surged through her mind, birthdays filled with laughter, afternoons of ice cream, Christmas mornings raining joy. Her children. But then, the darkness seeped deeper, her heartache, the loss. "Make a choice, Clara. Choose to reclaim your joy." The figure hissed, claws outstretched as if ready to snatch her soul. Suddenly, the box exploded open, light spilling out in cascades, illuminating everything in sight, yet the shadows fought back, growing ravenous. Clara's breath hitched. It was the light of her love, her memories. Everything she held dear threatened to burst free, and horror and beauty blended into one. Clara. The children were not gone just yet, desperately reaching for her amidst the chaos. "Will you embrace it? Or will you let it slip away?" The dark figure twisted, its grin becoming a snarl, lurking just at the edge of her sanity. Clara had to decide. Unleash the full power of the box, a force that could either save or doom them all, or surrender to the growing darkness that wanted to consume her whole. As the shadows closed in, she realized they weren't just shadows, they were a part of her own fear, the embodiment of her regret. Clara's heart raced. Could she triumph over the darkness within? With a final look at her fading children, she breathed deeply and prepared for the choice that awaited. What would she unleash? What consequences lay at the heart of that box? Would it be salvation or the final ruin? Clara's heart thundered as she stood at the precipice of her decision. The swirling shadows clawed at her, tugging her memories into darkness. She could feel it, the darkness was not just an external force, it lived within her. Every regret, every moment of despair, all rushed to the surface. "Clara. Please." Riley's voice broke through the chaos, shattering her thoughts like glass. She turned, seeing their faces twisted in fear, eyes wide with pleading. They needed her to make the right choice, but what was right anymore? "Mommy." Charlie's small hands reached out. Clara felt the weight of their trust press against her chest, and with it came the crippling pressure of fear. What if she failed them? What if her choices led them into deeper shadows? "Shut it!" The figure roared, its eyes flaring like dying embers. The shadows around it lunged forward, teeth bared, eager to consume her soul. Clara's breath quickened, panic surging like a heavy tide. "Stop!" she screamed. She couldn't let the darkness win, she wouldn't. In one wild, desperate move, Clara slammed her palms onto the box, unleashing the flood of memories once again, but this time, with a fierce determination. Let their laughter come back, she shouted, the light exploding into the room like a supernova. It blazed brightly, illuminating every corner, every crevice, and pushing back the darkness. For a moment, the shadows recoiled. Clara felt the warmth of their laughter enveloping her as the visions flashed by her children's faces, alive and vibrant, filled with happiness. Each moment of joy pulsed through her veins like a long-lost song, awakening a buried strength, but the figure shrieked in fury, its form twisting unnaturally. You think you can stave me off? I'm part of you. The shadows lashed back, abrupt and violent. Clara struggled against the tide of grief and darkness that threatened to drown her. She could feel its icy fingers weaving through her thoughts, planting seeds of doubt. You'll never reclaim them, Clara. You've failed them before, and you will fail again. No. She roared back, her voice rising above the noise. She could feel the love she bore for her children swirling inside her, a beacon of hope, brightening her resolve. Clara focused on the laughter, the warmth, the joy. She envisioned wrapping her arms around Riley and Charlie, holding them tight, shielding them from the darkness. Together, we can break free, she yelled, channeling the light outward like a shield. The shadows screamed in protest, clawing at the edges of her consciousness, desperate to reclaim their hold. Suddenly, a crack echoed through the air, like thunder rolling across the sky. The figure stumbled back, eyes bulging with rage as tiles on the floor shattered. The box glowed fiercely, a golden hue bursting forth with insistent brightness, and Clara could feel the shadows beginning to weaken, absorption fading with every beat of her heart. Clara, you'll regret this. The figure snarled, retreating back into the maelstrom of darkness, anger radiating from its form. Its essence writhed, morphing in and out of existence. Mommy! Her children cried, voices threading through the chaos, pulling at her heartstrings. They echoed like music, piercing through the suffocating black. In a surge of panic and determination, Clara took a deep breath, centering herself. I will protect them, she shouted, and she poured every ounce of her love into that light, forcing it to surge higher. The shadows quaked, thrashing violently against the purity of the glow. But would it be enough? Could she banish the figure and reclaim her children, or would the darkness retaliate? Just when she thought she could break the hold it had on them, the shadows twisted and contorted into a grotesque form, creeping closer, claws gleaming. You can't escape what you truly are. Clara's breath hitched as she faced the reality of the looming battle ahead. Could the light inside her be enough to obliterate the darkness? Would she succumb to the shadows, or would she unleash the light she needed to save them all? The light surged, pushing back against the figure as Clara gritted her teeth in defiance. Sweat dripped down her temples, mingling with the electricity of hope and despair swirling around her. Each heartbeat seemed to echo with doubt, like a drum rolling towards disaster. The shadows, pulsing and writhing, howled in a cacophony of fury as they tested the limits of her resolve. Stay strong, stay with me, Clara urged through gritted teeth, her voice shaking but resolute. Riley and Charlie clung tighter to her, their small bodies trembling, threatened by the relentless darkness. The figure loomed ever larger, a monstrous silhouette that threatened to swallow the light whole. You think you can defeat me with mere memories? It taunted, its voice a leer that sent icy tendrils of fear curling through Clara's stomach. I am your darkness. We are entwined, an inseparable bond. Clara felt the suffocating weight of its words, each syllable like a dagger aimed at her heart. But the warm laughter of her children rang louder, a counterpoint to the dark melody threatening to consume her. No! She yelled, channeling the love she had neglected, the moments she almost forgot. You are not me. You are a part of this mess, but not the whole of it. With every ounce of will, Clara focused on the light, the memories flooding back in vibrant colors, illuminating the shadows where they crawled. She couldn't afford to falter. You don't own me," she shouted defiantly. And with that, she propelled the golden light outward, its radius expanding, battling the shadows ferociously. They hissed and screeched, trying to claw back toward her heart, but with each step she took, they fell further back as if repelled by her fierce love. Then, without warning, the figure lunged forward, more grotesque than before, its visage melting and reforming in an unsettling dance of despair. It snapped its jaws, eyes blazing with fury. "You will remember this. You will pay." Fear clawed at her. The shadows brushed against her, icy fingers tracing her skin as if seeking to find a crack in her resolve. A cold sweat enveloped her, and for a brief heartbeat, she wondered if the darkness could truly be banished. Then Charlie cried out, and her heart twisted. "Mommy, I'm scared." The call of her son snapped her focus, igniting a new fire within. Clara turned, seeing their faces twisted in dread. Their eyes reflected the shadows that lurked at the edges of her perception. "Listen to me," she commanded, her voice steady now. "The darkness is afraid of our love. If we stand together, it can't win. We must fight back." Riley nodded, squeezing Charlie's hand. Clara felt their resolve buoy her spirit. They would not slip away into the void. As she poured all her strength into the light, something within her shifted. A surge of energy exploded from her core, more intense than she ever thought possible. It was as if the universe itself had awakened alongside her, merging hope and defiance into a singular force. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, shrieking as the golden light spread like a wildfire. The figure writhed, unrecognizable, rage morphing into dread. "No! You can't do this." But Clara could, and she would. All those moments of joy, laughter, and love ignited within her, sending tendrils of light wrapping around the darkness and burning it away piece by piece. "Hurry!" she urged, urging her children closer to the growing light. Yet, just as victory seemed imminent, dread tipped the scales. "The past can't be erased." The figure howled. Suddenly, wisps of shadow swirled back at her like a cyclone, shattering her thoughts with painful memories and moments of failure. Each memory burned with regret, threatening to crush her spirit. "You'll always fail." Heart racing, Clara fought against the tide of darkness clawing at her. Could memories of her past hold her back now? Was it truly possible to vanquish such pain? With a defiant roar, she squared her shoulders. Not this time. She lunged into the darkness, ready to face what lay ahead. But new shadows flickered behind her. She could feel eyes watching. Waiting. Clara grasped her children's hands tight, knowing that this battle was far from over. The darkness was relentless, always lying in wait. What new horrors awaited her as the shadows encroached again? Would she discover something even darker within herself? Clara plunged into the thick blackness, the light dimming around her as the force of shadows wrapped tightly against her. Every breath felt like drowning in a tide of despair, and with each step forward, the weight of her past pressed harder against her soul. Memories she thought buried surfaced, like dark fish rising from the depths, faces twisted in sorrow, regrets that cut deep. Her heart pounded in her chest, echoing in the stillness of the enveloping dark. "There's no escape, Clara," the figure's voice whispered, slithering into her mind. "You can't outrun me, can you? You need me, you crave the pain. Shut up!" she yelled, her voice cracking, pushing against the suffocating force. But it was futile. The shadows listened, they waited, and they reveled in her turmoil. In that moment, Clara's grip on her children faltered, just for a heartbeat. She remembered months of neglect, missed birthdays, and fights she had walked away from. The shadows danced in the flicker of her fading light, an audience to her failures. She felt Riley's hand slip slightly, the fear in his eyes mirrored by Charlie South's "Stay close." Clara commanded, pulling them both back into her embrace, but doubts gnawed at her resolve. "Mommy, what's happening?" Riley whimpered, his voice trembling as the shadows closed in, engulfing their surroundings with a chilling energy. Clara could feel the despair clawing at her throat, but she couldn't let the fear spill over. "We're going to be okay," she forced out, but the conviction felt thin. As the darkness surged, something in her shifted. In the face of worry, she searched for the memories of laughter, the sunlight streaming through the window as they played board games, the warmth of hugs that made everything feel right. Closing her eyes, she summoned every joyful moment she could muster: the birthday cakes, the warm summer nights, the cozy movie marathons. Each thought was a spark, struggling against the tide. "Together!" she shouted, as her heart pumped a fierce rhythm. The golden light began to flicker into existence, fueled by the love for her children. "We are together. They can't take this from us." The shadows howled in anger, recoiling from the brilliant glow, but the figure lurked, a hungry beast waiting to pounce. "Will that light keep you safe? You know it won't last. Face it, Clara, you're weak. You're nothing without your darkness. Stop it." Clara screamed, her voice a weapon, shards of determination splintering against the oppressive dark. The light surged brighter in retaliation, emboldened by her anger. "You may haunt me, but you don't control me. This isn't just my battle anymore." With that, she saw the flicker of fear in the figure's eyes. It staggered back as if a weapon had struck, the shadows retreating just enough for her to see the breadth of the nightmare encroaching upon them. But just as hope flickered back to full force, Clara felt reality distort. The shadows twisted and writhed, reshaping themselves into grotesque images: her young self, alone and lost, screaming for help, begging for a way out. "Look! See who you really are!" The figure cackled, ripping Clara from her focus. "Accept it. You cannot emerge from your blackened soul." She shuddered, the memories clawing closer, wrapping around her heart like a vice. The images felt like a noose tightening, and Clara realized the battle was far from won. It was escalating, plunging deeper into her psyche, dragging her into a vortex. "Clara, please." Charlie's small voice broke through her turmoil, pulling her back into the moment. She blinked down at him, the innocence in his wide, terrified eyes a beacon of love and purpose. Riley held on, grounding her. In that split second, all the memories, the good and the bad, swirled together. They were not chains but stepping stones, each moment leading her further into the light. But the darkness wouldn't relinquish its grip easily. The figure howled again, a sound full of rage, and Clara sensed the shadows thickening, pressing in with malice. It wasn't just her past anymore, it was something ancient and rooted, a curse meant to choke the very essence of her. The realization sent a shock through her. As she braced against the reality, a new fear gripped her. The battle had just begun, but a new plan brewed in the depths of her mind. What new depths of despair lay ahead? How much of herself would she have to confront to save her children? As the shadows roared and closed in once more, Clara steeled herself. The answer was coming, and it was going to change everything. Clara felt the shadows pressing closer, thick and suffocating, their whispers hissing in her ears. The figure hung back, its grin stretched unnaturally wide, revealing teeth like jagged stones. It thrived on her fear, feeding off the doubt swirling within her. She pushed herself to focus, but the memories, those treacherous flashbacks, were relentless. "Mommy!" Riley clung to her desperately, his small body shivering against the weight of dread. Charlie's grip on her waist felt fragile, as if even the tiniest crack in her strength would shatter their fragile cocoon of hope. Those twisted memories morphed again, and now they showed her the worst moments, the night she yelled too loud, the look of hurt on her children's faces, the way she had turned away when they needed her most. "Look how easy it was for you to choose darkness, Clara." The figure purred, slinking through the gloom, joyfully recounting her failures. "You left them. You abandoned them to your demons." "No!" she cried, shaking her head fiercely. "I'm here. I'm fighting." "Fighting?" It laughed, the sound ragged and unholy. "You're losing. Just look around." And she did. In the thick fog of nightmares, she could see other shapes, familiar faces twisted with despair. Friends lost to silence, people she had let slip away. They beckoned her, a tragic chorus urging her to join them in their sorrow. "Join us, Clara. It's easier here." The shadows offered a sweet release, a way out of pain. The idea sent ice through her veins. They whispered, taunting her hopes, drowning her in confusion. "Remember your childhood?" The figure crooned, rising again from the darkness like a vengeful ghost. "Remember who you were?" Dread pooled in Clara's stomach. The past was a relentless specter, clawing at her heels, and finding the light in those memories felt like an impossible task. She needed the joy to push away the shadows, but the fear hung heavy in the air. "Think of the love you've lost," it snarled. "The joy that slipped through your fingers." Clara felt the shadows lurch forward. The darkness seemed alive, crawling like insects over her skin. She could almost taste the bitterness of despair filling her mouth. But then, amidst the stinging darkness, she heard Charlie again. "Mommy." His voice was clear and pure, cutting through the terror. "I believe in you." That cry was a lifeline. Clara looked down into his eyes, shining with a bright defiance that sparked something within her. It ignited a fire in her chest, bolstering her shaky resolve. This wasn't just a confrontation with her past, it was a fight for her children's future, for every moment they could be together. Together. She shouted again, the word echoing powerfully in the void. She unleashed a surge of warmth, her heart pounding fiercely. Clara could feel the bonds of love wrapping tightly around them, pushing against the shadows. But now the figure roared in rage, its laughter turning into something guttural and primal. The darkness recoiled, thrashing violently like a wounded beast. Each thrash sent ripples through the very fabric of reality, and Clara braced herself. The shadows reshaped again, revealing a monstrous version of her own self, a wretched reflection, frothing with despair. It sneered, eyes alight with scorn. "You think this light will save you? You're still trapped." Each word ripped at Clara, and she felt the heaviness returning. Doubt clawed at her mind, whispering venomous thoughts, feeding the dark inside her. Just then, she realized she needed to do more than fight, she had to confront that part of herself. "What if you can't?" The figure jeered, its shape flickering in and out of focus. "What if you're too broken to save anyone?" "No!" Clara screamed, her voice filling the abyss. "I will not break. I am not alone." The figure hesitated, its grin fading, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed vulnerable. Clara seized the chance, diving deeper into her memories, pulling out the moments of joy, the laughter, the hugs, the warmth. Each memory was a weapon, piercing through the dark, flooding her heart with light. But the shadows sensed the shift and closed in violently. She had pushed them back, but they were regrouping. The air shimmered, reality bending dangerously. Clara's heart raced, she felt the truth rising, forcing her to confront everything she feared. As the shadows clashed with her burgeoning light, Clara locked eyes with the figure, its eyes narrowing in defiance. Just then, a crack of swirling energy ruptured through the dark, and she realized the confrontation was just the beginning. What would she have to face next? The darkness howled, and the answer loomed ahead, sinister and unknown, pulling her deeper into the void. The shadows writhed, a swirling storm of despair that seemed to drown out everything but their cold laughter. Clara stood firm, heart racing, thoughts clashing. The memories of joy fought against the weight of regret, and as the darkness pressed in, she felt a fraying of her resolve. "Clara! Stay with us!" Charlie's voice pierced through the cacophony, pulling her back into the fire of her love for her children. She turned to him, to Riley, their frightened faces melting into the haze like flickering flames. "Together!" she shouted, her voice carrying the heartbeat of a mother's love, raw and unyielding. She could feel it, the energy of her bond with them, vibrant against the monochrome of despair. "We're not letting you go." The figure in front of her snarled, its grotesque features twisting in a sickening display of rage. The shadows lunged, stretching hands made of smoke and sorrow, reaching for her. Clara faced the darkness, her spirit igniting like a supernova. She would not back down, not now. Every moment of laughter, every hug counts. She declared, channeling all her memories, letting them spill out with fierce determination. A warm golden light began to envelop them, pulsing to the rhythm of her heart, a defiant flame wingspan against the onslaught. The dark figure shrieked as the light managed to pierce through the gloom. "You can't escape me. I am your truth." It howled, weaving between the light and the shadows, a malevolent dancer in a cruel performance. But Clara felt the warmth behind her growing stronger, particularly from her children. "Mommy! Keep going!" Riley cried, unflinching, even as the fingers of darkness brushed against him. Clara's heart swelled with hope, solidifying her will. She needed to push further. "Stay close, my loves!" she screamed, wrapping her arms around them, anchoring their family in the face of horror. With their presence bolstering her heart, she summoned a power she never knew existed. With one decisive thrust, she launched the collective warmth towards the encroaching darkness, dispersing it with the sheer force of their love. The shadows hissed and recoiled, the dark figure shrinking back with each step she took towards it. "You think you'll win? You've already lost!" it shrieked, voice splintering with fury. But Clara felt strong now, felt whole, and she raised her hands high. "Not today!" she yelled, determination blazing like a beacon. With one mighty push, she hurled her memories of joy into the very depths of darkness, each moment shining brighter than the last. The magical Christmas mornings with sparkles in their eyes, the sweet smell of cookies baking, little fingers drawing on the living room walls. "Every moment matters, and so do we." She howled against the swirling void. The shadows struggled, contorted, as if in pain, shrieking, "No! You can't!" But Clara advanced fearlessly, clenching her fists. "You don't own me. You don't own my children." And just like that, the light surged brighter than any darkness had the power to suppress. With a final burst of sheer will and love, Clara pushed the brilliant glow into the very heart of the shadows. It exploded outwards, erupting into light, banishing gloom as laughter rang through the void, mingling with the sweet sounds of joy. For an instant, for the briefest flickering heartbeat, everything halted. Then the shadows screamed, dissolving like mist in the first rays of dawn. The figure writhed in agony, its form twisting and distorting before fading away completely, shrieking in a cacophony of defeated anger. The oppressive darkness lifted, revealing her two children standing there, wide-eyed but alive, smiles trickling back as they emerged from the tendrils of despair. "Mommy!" Riley cried, leaping into her arms, and Clara squeezed him tightly, fresh tears of relief spilling from her eyes. Charlie followed, wrapping his small arms around her legs. Holding them close, Clara felt the warmth of victory wash over her, carrying with it the joy she thought lost forever. They stood in a familiar room, only now it pulsed with life, full of warmth and laughter. "I thought I'd lost you." Clara gasped, looking into their innocent expressions, fear still fresh in her chest. "Never. We're always here." Charlie squealed, a giggle bursting forth like a wildflower in spring, and in that moment, Clara felt whole again. The memories of despair faded into the recesses of her mind, swallowed by the radiant light of joy and love. Together, they would weave their own stories, their own magical memories. As the bittersweet final notes of the struggle echoed, Clara couldn't help but feel grateful. The trials had been harsh, but they emerged stronger, forged brilliantly in the fire of love. With one arm draped over each of her children, Clara stepped into their bright future together, the laughter now their shield, a promise against the darkness that would never break them again. As the Christmas lights twinkled warmly around them, Clara whispered softly, "We'll always fight for each other, no matter what." And with that, they lifted their heads to the stars, ready to redefine their past as a symbol of their truth, a family bound together by love, defeating the sinister shadows of Christmas forever. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on more exclusive stories like this. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.